Thank you very much for joining us.
Always a pleasure for me to be on here with you, dear Alex. And the pleasure is somewhat tainted by the state of the world and the deteriorating state of civility. And what is very important for me, I disclose my bias immediately, the deteriorating rate of our civil liberties. Not the rate of our civil liberties is deteriorating, but the validity, the extent, the enforceability, the guarantees for civil liberties, I feel, are deteriorating at a rapid pace. I just disclose that personal bias I have.
Well, that's not a bias. That is an observable fact.
It is an observable fact, but it is one that I must say subjectively, it is the only thing I'm still clinging on to. Because it, I wonder sometimes, why am I so interested in geopolitics? Why is it my concern, domestic, global politics, what is going on with the flux, where the money is coming from, where the money is going, supply chains, where are the goods going, where are they coming from, what upholds the infrastructure? Why am I concerned with the choke points? Why am I concerned with Bab el Mandab and Hormuz? And why am I concerned with these things? Why am I concerned with the abduction of Maduro? I've never been to Venezuela. Why am I concerned with China's and tightening grip on Taiwan? Why am I concerned with Japan's abolition of its non militarization, Article 9 of its constitution? Why am I concerned with the ways of the world? And at the end of the day, I could say because I'm curious. I could say because somehow the end of the last century created a class of globally conscious citizen, world citizen. I happen to be one of them. Blah, 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 blah. At the end, what remains is that there was a world that worked, as you put it so beautifully in one of our titles. And what worked for all in theory, but certainly for some, closer to the, in theory, Fanon
in theory?
Fanon said it best. He said, after experiencing discrimination by the French, after the French used him to fight the Nazis at the front lines, after he saw that the French would not decorate the African, the dark-skinned, in the same manner, with the same generosity, who survived the Nazis, fighting at the front line, that they wouldn't decorate them on equal footing. He said, the universalism that the European speaks of will have to be brought about by us who have seen the European fail at doing it. It will have to be brought about by us. And when I picked that up from Fanon's work, I said to myself, yes, we are under no illusion that the universalist claim that the Europeans banned about the planet has been realized by them. But it is an objective, it is an ambition that is worth living for.
Well, I'm living, and my life is worth living, regardless of whether there is some kind of universalist idea of my worth or not, because it's really about the battle to have your worth recognized. And let me step back, because you know that I'm a herbalist, right? And so when you begin with a patient, the first thing you really have to do is to diagnose the problem. Okay? Right. And when you diagnose the problem, what you have to do is you have to go through that patient's history. Okay? Because the patient is going to come and tell you about their discomfort. But the discomfort is where they arrive to after the disease process had developed.
Isn't that anamnesis?
I'm not sure of the name. Not sure of that term.
The
Okay.
broadly, the recalling or remembering of past experiences, ideas, or events. Recollection from Greek. Anamnesis, diagnosis, prognosis,
Analysis.
therapy. That's how I have.
Okay. Okay. So yes, you have to really have that discussion with the patient to so that not only that you understand how
Mm-hmm,
they got there, but
mm-hmm,
most importantly that they understand how they got there,
very
right?
different
Because
from
they're the
Western.
one who have to because they're the one who has to do something about it, right?
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
so in terms of especially when there are lifestyle or dietary issues or emotional issues involved, okay? I mean, in the case that the patient fell and broke their arm or something, then they shouldn't be coming to me. I'm a herbalist, okay? And I no longer have to deal with that kind of problem. There was a
mm,
time when we would have, but I don't
mm,
anymore.
mm.
So the point here is that you have to go into the history of the patient and you have to look at, okay, so what is the cause of this issue? Because sometimes the patient is ill. They just can't afford proper food.
Mhm.
Okay. So at that point, you you have to find a fix for that. I said, okay, well, you can eat these things. You could buy beans or something. You could sprout them, right? Yeah, because there is nothing that you can do
Mm.
that is going to solve that. It's dietary, so
Yes.
the medicine is not going to solve that.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
it's about really understanding what the problem is, okay, and how it is propagating rupture
Yes.
or disruption across the system.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
which at some point will manifest as disease symptoms, but it's also going to manifest as it's going to have its psychic and emotional expression.
Yes.
So, as we're stepping back here, I think that we really have to diagnose the issue beyond or, or prior to the appearance of the discomfort of, well, they're not recognizing me. Because if you start there, then you're going to think that if they recognize me, it's going to resolve the problem.
Yes.
Okay, and that that that's not in my hands. Their recognition of me is not in my hands.
And that is such a powerful distinction. Just as a footnote, it's such a powerful distinction between what you just said and the standard operating procedure of medicine, institutionalized medicine that we were born into today. It's something very
Hmm.
typical. The state has positioned itself as the place to delegate your health to. It has a
Hmm.
monopoly on what is health uh, uh, generative and whatnot. So you go to the doctor
Hmm.
and you sort of delegate your responsibility for your health to the institution. At least that's how the West functions. And that
Hmm.
would be a very different approach to responsibility for health and health literacy than the one you just shared with the audience,
Hmm.
right? It's about
Yeah.
self-awareness
Hmm.
and one's own
Yeah.
literacy of one's health.
Yes. Yes. And uh, and so the point here is that the person is the at the center of their health journey, not you as the physician. You're the physician. You're not there to save them, right? Your job is to support them in a journey to health. Okay.
Is to support
Now,
them
right,
in a
in a
journey
journey
to
to health.
health.
Now the reason why I went there is because of your statement, right?
Mm-hmm.
The discomfort emerges when um the other does not accept you as equal to it,
Mm.
right? Equal to them in status and deservingness. Okay. So if you begin at that point, the assumption is that if I get them to do that, it'll be okay. So if I get equality with them, right? And I'm saying the disease, the disease started long before that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So just trying to force them to recognize you in the same way
Mm-hmm.
is dealing with a symptom.
Yes.
Okay. And I remember I remember I've been in situations where I you know I come I had I have medical knowledge, traditional medical knowledge from
Mm-hmm.
Guyana. And so people will look at that and they go, and they are telling me what traditional medicine in these places are. And they never see it as, and often never see it as, as fitting to ask me
Mm.
about the medicinal traditions of that region. They tell me
Mm-hmm.
because I am not seen as being the person who should know. I'm not the right kind of person who should know. So if I looked indigenous, right, that
Mm-hmm.
would be okay, right? Alternatively, if I didn't look indigenous and I was white, I could be an expert, but I'm not. So I've always dealt with that very curiously and actually with a bit of mirth. I find it a bit funny. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes when they're doing it, I try and keep the little smile that's kind of teasing around the side of my mouth. But not often, not sometimes, no, most times. I got better at it now. Um, and so on because and people would become quite uncomfortable when that appeared, right? Because I know what I know. I don't need them to qualify what I know, right? They either want to benefit from it or they don't. In which case, their loss. I have it. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
listened to
Mm-hmm.
them. I heard what they said. I can then, if there was something I could learn from it, fine. If there's nothing, then so what? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But is this stability in a sense of self that does not need to be inscribed into
Mm-hmm.
the system because the way that the imperial order works is that it must until it inscribes you, you are not valid.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you go and then you are valid. You can be that because we stamp you as being that. And
Yes.
in the traditional systems, um, no, it was more okay. You know, how do you know? Well, somebody taught me,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right? You know, well, I was ill and I just knew what to do. Well, how did you know what to do? Oh, I was ill, and in my dream, somebody came to me and told me what to do. All right, all of those are also valid ways of knowing, but they're not epistemologically admissible,
Mm-hmm.
right? Though they do happen, right? And if you look at the stories of the quantum physicists, etc., right? So these things do happen. So the
Mm-hmm.
point is that that in order to inscribe you, what happens is that what is admissible as a knowing subject and how the subject is inscribed amongst the knowing is part of imperial technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? Including as an academic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that we have. So the point and why is it important? Because nobody you if you so you end up fighting in wars in the hope of demonstrating that you are as good. Okay. you end up dying to prove that you are as good.
I'm trying to.
Okay.
I'm hold on. I'm now at this point. I'm trying to see where in the framework of what is happening at this moment in reality, this becomes poignant uh, and visible. And some thoughts crossed my mind when you spoke these words, and it was 1.1. We're seeing that the U.S. We're seeing reports of the U.S. Funding, equipping, and supporting Iranian Kurds in the north for the purpose of, and here two things happen in my mind. Number one, of course, supporting their desire for independence and self-determination. And the other thing that opens is for the destabilization of the current Iranian official government regime. And I was wondering, where does what you just said apply there? And then I took a step back and then I said, but where else in general does this apply and to whom does it apply? That you are killing and dying and entering fights to prove your worth, to prove your belonging, and to prove your humanity. Which concrete example were you speaking of?
Well, what I was talking about when you started talking, you were talking about
My civil liberties.
your civil liberties, right? And the universal application of equality,
Or the
right?
desirability, the desirability.
Right, yeah. And you were talking about Fanon, and I'm critiquing the very basis of that, okay? And the way that Iranian liberals got caught with that, right? So if they're liberal enough, they'll be okay. Okay? And so on. And so I'm saying that these are part of imperial narrative control,
Let's
right?
get into that.
Including the
Let's get
narrative
into
of
that.
who you are. Hold on, but remember the title of our thing today, which is the American Jihad, and really, I think we need to really come back and
Jump in.
tell people why we named it that.
Well, but you've just given it away. You said if you're liberal enough, and a couple of weeks ago we had a conversation in which we pointed to the to some of it's quite a while ago, but it's in the archives where we pointed to the characteristics, to the attributes of the U.S. How shall we put it? Of the U.S. Archetypical mind state and Puritanism. Puritanism, the desire to purify. We had Miller and we had Hegseth from their speeches and their own statements to illustrate how purity and connected with the schizoid desire and need and drive to identify the threat from within and from without, and to connected with the desire and the need to purify all that are considered threats. So there's a sorry, I'll just pass it over.
No. I'm listening.
So
Yeah.
this profile that we already saw a few weeks ago with Miller's speech at Charlie Kirk's memorial, when he spoke of we and they, and listed the attributes of the we, and listed the invulnerability claim, the absolute invulnerability claim, the absolute ingenuity claim, sort of monopolizing all of the good for oneself and projecting all of the bad on the other in a clinically, radically clinical way, which then served as justification for the right and the legitimacy to exterminate the other.
Yes. Okay.
If and when need be.
Yeah.
One more sentence. And I feel like you just gave it away. You just helped us get back to the title when you said, if you're liberal enough, if you're just liberal enough, you'll be okay.
Okay. So, I'm going to come back at you, but I'm going to think there's something that has really struck me that inspired the naming of this the American Jihad,
Mm.
which is that there has been a complaint. There are about over 200 complaints that American commanders were talking about the war against Iran as the war of Armageddon. Okay, and some of and one of them is reported to have said that that Trump is anointed by Jesus
Mm.
to conduct this war.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And if you remember in many of the articles which I had done before, I was talking about the role of dispensation theology
Mhm.
um, in this. So the whole idea of precisely that, that the Jews must be returned to this nation of Israel
Mm.
in order, and they must initiate a war in order that Armageddon can begin, they can be destroyed, and Jesus can return. Well, some of them will become Christian, and the rest of them will be destroyed. Okay, and in that, the Muslims are basically identified as the forces of the Antichrist. Okay,
Mm.
so I'm saying that that this way of that this is the core of the American jihad, okay, of their idea of jihad. And the other thing that no, let me stop there
But there's
because you
much
want to
to
comment.
say here. I'd like to just throw something at you. You may
Mm-hmm.
remember when he was still rather chubby, because right now, if you see him today, you won't recognize him. Mike Pompeo,
Uh,
in 2019, the
mm-hmm.
U.S. Secretary of State said it is possible that President Donald Trump was sent by God to save Israel from Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this because my brain has this tendency to unforget egregious things. When I hear something politically egregious or irreconcilable with logic, my brain immediately saves it as as an outlier detail. And I will never forget reading in the BBC. You can find it. Let me see the date. March 22nd, 2019. It is reported that that U.S. efforts are to make in the Middle East are to make sure that Israel, as a democracy in the Middle East, uh, that is a Jewish state, remains. So, just so you know, as a Christian, I certainly believe that it is possible that President Trump has been raised for such a time as this, just like Queen Esther, to help save the Jewish people from an Iranian menace. And he added, "I am
Did he
confident that."
say the Trump is a Queen Esther?
Well, the question was put to him, and his answer was, "As a Christian, I certainly believe that's possible. I am
Okay.
confident that the Lord is at
No, no,
work here."
no, I'm very, I find it very interesting that he identified Trump as a queen, and if Trump is self-identifying as a queen, I don't have a problem with that, but it should be very clear. Sorry.
Well, so that conversation did take place. It was a headline in the BBC in 2019, and it's part of the catalog of bizarre things that I hold in my head.
Uh, the catalog of bizarre events.
Absolutely. Mike Pompeo, former head of the CIA, claiming that Trump was chosen by God to save Israel from Iran, and here we are.
Yes. Okay. And that's why I'm calling this the American Jihad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and 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 precisely because going back to this figure of Max von Oppenheim,
Mm-hmm.
who basically redesigned the modern concept of jihad in order that it could be weaponized by the by the Reichs, by the
The
first,
emperor.
yes, by the by the emperor, by the by the well, I'm trying to remember the name of I'm a bit tired, but yeah. So oh,
Let me
yeah,
quickly just check it.
it's the Reichstag stat, isn't it?
Hold on, I have it right here. So Max Freiherr von Oppenheim.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he was born in Cologne in 1860 and
Mm-hmm.
died in 1946. That is at the age of 86, quite ripe in Landshut. That's interesting. I've been to Landshut in
Mm-hmm.
Bavaria. So Landshut,
Mm-hmm.
and he was a German Orientalist, and his
Mm-hmm.
specialty was Asia and
Mm-hmm.
what is Middle East, what we call now West Asia in particular. And he was an
Mm-hmm.
archaeologist, and he was a
Mm-hmm.
pan-Islamist. He called himself,
Mm-hmm.
designated
Mm-hmm.
himself as a pan-Islamist. And what else do we see here? And well, he was a participant in excavations in the 1890s and 1920s,
Mm-hmm.
and he brought many of his findings, they call it, to Berlin and exposed them in a private museum. The private museum was destroyed during the bombing by Allied forces, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's what he did. And we look in particular when we talk about Max von Oppenheim,
Mm-hmm.
if that's the period where he was operative, right? 1860 to 1946 is when he lived, and from 1899 to 1929 in particular, he had a very fruitful and a very uh, was a functional career.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. So basically, von Oppenheim had decided that jihad could be redefined to to start as a means of disrupting the British and French empires.
Hmm.
Okay, by causing uprisings because the Ottoman Sultan had called for jihad.
Mm.
Okay, so jihad was redefined as this existential struggle against empire. Okay, in a way that would change, that was unrecognizable to the people who were hearing it at the time. Hmm.
I found the answer to your question earlier. He was the
Hmm.
nephew of Queen Victoria. And
Who?
as the nephew, not Oppenheimer, I'm getting to it, uh, William the Second. William the
Uh-huh.
Second,
Okay. Yes. Yes. Wilhelm. Yeah. In the second. Yeah.
the nephew to Queen Victoria,
Yeah.
and was advised by Max von Oppenheim to
Mhm.
travel the West Asia and to consider
Yes.
his Max von Oppenheim's consultancy in how to proceed politically and militarily uh,
Yeah.
for his interests in that region.
Yeah. So what happens is that Max von Oppenheim failed. Okay. But the idea and the format was born, and so this template has been used. And we were talking about how the production of modern jihadis in Afghanistan was what the educational program to radicalize them was written into textbooks by the University of Nebraska. Okay, so
Mm.
so that's one of the things we're talking about, but but I'm saying that this war, which the United States is engaged in, and the dominance of the American far right and its Christian far right, and the dominance of Christian Zionism and dispensationalism,
Exactly.
okay,
Mhm.
um, really drives this conflict. This conflict is being driven by a group of people who, in the back of their heads, think that. Okay. and they have said it during this and that Gaza are also saying that Gaza is, once you begin to read it like that, then Gaza starts to become that um, mode of disciplining. It's a blunt sacrifice so that the rest of the region should know what they get if they step out of line. Okay, and it hasn't really worked. Okay, and the attempt to punish Iran hasn't worked, and so they stepped in to actually let them know who they should be. And and then when it steps out, all of this stuff starts to spill out. Okay. And I'm also saying that the Europeans at this point, who are informed enough to know what the hell is going on, are in on this for their own reasons, right? I don't think that people like Maersk and so on think that there's going to be some kind of second coming or whatever, that's not why they're there. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Should I read to you what I have here from the Turkish um what do we have here? I have from a variety of press services the report about the event. So I have here from let me see. I could read it to you. Anadolu Ayansi. Let me start there. I also have from the Guardian report about this, and it says U.S. troops are being told that the Iran war is intended to bring about Armageddon. And inside the report, we are informed that American service members across every branch of the military have been told by commanders that the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran is intended to induce the biblical end times or Armageddon, according to the complaints that were lodged with the U.S. watchdog. And this is an excerpt from the letter. This morning, our commander opened up the combat readiness status briefing by urging us not to be afraid as to what is happening with our combat operations in Iran right now. A non-commissioned officer said this in an email complaint lodged with the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, which is the watchdog in question. So we were urged to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan. And there were specific citations out of the book of Revelation referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ that were quoted in those preparatory speeches.
Okay. Yes.
This is where we are.
So that's why I'm calling it the American Jihad, right? Because the very thing, what happened is that the reshaping of jihad and the ideas of jihad, because of that schizoid, paranoid position. So the point that we are good. So the good, splitting the world into the good breast and the bad breast, right? So that you are obviously good, so they must be they're evil, right? They're the epitome of evil, and so this way of splitting the world, right? This way, which is one of the primary psychic means of the infant, right? So these are infantile methods, and they form the grammar of how our aggression emerges. Okay, so
you can find
one more.
sorry, you can
Go on.
find a very elaborate explanation of the last 30 seconds of what Alex just said in the article titled The Hidden Architecture of Politics from Psyche to Cosmology, published September 28th, 2025. Please carry on.
Okay, yeah. So that basically what we're looking at is the emergence of a schizoid, paranoid framing of the world. Okay, and yeah, and so when you're seeing the accusations of double tap strikes, the strike
Killing
on the
killing
children's
children
school,
first
killing
day,
children,
on the first day
etc.
of
on
the
the first
bombardment.
day. Then you have to really begin to ask some questions, and you have to ask those questions based upon what has been said already, and based upon the very exterminatory language of of American congressmen about Gaza, right, and about Muslims. That's what we see. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Oh my God. The conversation we're having just connected dots in my head, of which I'm not sure they should be connected, but they've
Mm-hmm.
been connected. On the very first day of this bombardment, I picked up right away 163 children from a school were killed between 6 and 12.
Mm-hmm.
Not much was reported about it, um, but schools are, by international law, illegitimate targets. Not that international law matters to anyone anymore, but just to say that there is a
Sorry,
list.
what's that? What's that?
That is it. So um, when I read that 160 kids had been killed, I thought to myself, oh Lord, how catastrophic, how horrible. They're going to file this under um, collateral damage again and move on. And that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
then, as we're speaking today, I remembered something. A
Mm-hmm.
few days ago, maybe some of you may have picked it up. There was a burning of an effigy in Iran,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a seated human being, sort of as if seated on a throne with a bull's head.
Mm-hmm.
And it was set on fire by
Mm-hmm.
protesters. Hundreds of protesters set that sitting human with a bull's head on fire. And at the feet, the semiotics of that situation was quite informative. At
Mm-hmm.
the feet or at the bottom of the hands were the two flags, U.S. and Israel, and it
Mm-hmm.
said Baal, Baal, a child sacrificing god from Mesopotamic times. So the protesters were imputing to Israel and the U.S. Um, an identity with Baal and setting that effigy on fire, burning it, to symbolize radical disagreement and abhorrence with that identification between Israel, US, and Baal. Now, I
Yeah.
picked it up and I said, okay, that has happened. And now 160 kids are killed on the very first day. In
Mm-hmm.
2026, when you can, from a satellite, recognize the value of a coin on the street, when you can zoom in and recognize the monetary value of a coin lying on the street, we have 160 kids killed by
Okay.
guided missiles. Right after the Iranians protest a child sacrificial and impute to Israel and the US a child sacrificial tendencies,
Okay. So here's what I would say, that the
proclivities.
general targeting of civilian infrastructure, which has been present in Gaza, and which has been which has become part of their operational doctrine,
Hmm.
then I don't need another theory, right? It might be so, but I don't need another theory to explain that. And I tend to try and do these things with the bare minimum that I need. Okay.
Yes.
And so, in the bare minimum that I need, what I've seen is that this is part of their modus operandi. I mean,
Hmm.
after that, they bombed the hospital. Okay. You've got, you've got,
Yes,
you've
they
got,
did.
yes, but you've also, you've got sanctions. I mean, the sanctions are a form of siege, and sieges are implemented
Ongoing.
to punish populations, right? So
Absolutely.
I don't need that. But what I don't want to do is that this discussion that we have
Hmm.
should be just should just remain as that this group is bad and that group is good. Okay.
Mm.
I really want to be able to analyze what's
Absolutely.
going on. Okay.
Absolutely.
And my position is now why the Europeans are involved
Mm-hmm.
is that is that empire the imperial it requires it requires control over the circulation of strategically central or indispensable goods.
Yes.
Okay, you
We're
literally
talking.
if you can't do without them. If you don't have them, right, you're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And so the imperial must have it must control that. It must control the flow of those goods. Okay, and maritime empires in particular, um, because like in China, for instance, which is not really a maritime empire. Its logic is land based. It the emperor had the monopoly on the growth of they had they had they had monopoly control over the silk trade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so making sure that that the silkworm was being and the silk was extracted. All of this was under um imperial oversight.
Yes.
Controls too much. Okay, so it's a very different way of looking at it. What happens with maritime empires is that you sit upon choke points and you control choke points. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
which means that basically everything that passes through you must get a cut. Okay, and nobody must pass through who you don't want to pass through. If you say that they shouldn't pass through, so that's how maritime empire works, right? It's regulatory system. It's one moment. It's law. It's diplomacy. It's financial institutions. They must control that flow.
Mm.
And what we're seeing is the the changing of that flow and the changeover of control of the flow. So what's happened is that you've got other actors arising, and they're saying, well, no, you shouldn't have exclusive control over that flow, right? We don't mind, you might have the main, but you can't have exclusive control over that flow anymore, okay? Because we don't trust you to deal with that justly anymore,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And why do we? Because of your action. So what you're seeing here is this move to come back and take control over the most strategic um, shipped goods, which
Yes.
is oil. It's oil is the most shipped. It is the most strategic. It's energy you can't keep warm. And most people will not be able to cook, etc., unless they have oil or petroleum, right? Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
natural gas or not. So I'm saying that part of that is the move to reestablish control over over those resources in order to remain the central hegemon. Sorry, that
As
was a
you
long one.
No, that was excellent, and that's an important one. If you look today, March 1st, well, March 1st, 2026, a couple of days ago, you published on Dystopian Max the three clocks, escalation endurance in the Gulf Levant conflict. You specify exactly what you've just elaborated on, that you distinguish between the energy valve, which is Hormuz, and the trade valve, which is Bab al Mandab and the Red Sea. So
Hmm.
if you care, if our audience cares to open a map and have a look, they will see that Bab al Mandab leads is where the Houthis have been wrecking
Yeah,
quite some
yeah,
damage to uh,
yeah.
global trade, put it that way, uh,
Hmm.
a global flux of resources from the rest of the world to the west of the world.
Hmm.
And of course, Hormuz, which is now, I mean, we've only been talking about this for 25, 26 years. And now here it is. It's been
Hmm.
the fear of anyone. who has any understanding of the savings that global logistic supply chains make by not having to go past the Cap of Good Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And now you just go and ruffle up the Shiites in Iran, and
Mm-hmm.
the logical consequence of that is that the price of energy across the globe, across
Mm-hmm.
especially Europe, is going to
Mm-hmm.
increase inevitably.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, as you say, so why are the Europeans in? What are they doing? And before I let go,
Mm-hmm.
there's a clarity that I think the audience should have. Whatever the Department of War is going to undertake, one of their
Mm-hmm.
objectives, which they don't speak much about, is going
Mm-hmm.
to be logically to attempt to seize and control access to Hormuz from the territory of Iran. So and that's going to be one of the main military operational
Um,
targets that they have
yeah.
to.
Well, you see, what's really interesting about Iran
Mm,
is that if you have a friendly government in Iran that is also a military ally,
like in Syria.
then yeah, then you have access to the Caspian, you have access to Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
Um, and extensive road networks. You're able to move, okay? Um, and also you've got so the Caspian because you've got okay, Azerbaijan used to be part of Persia,
mm-hmm,
okay?
mm-hmm.
So then um they became part of the Soviet Union,
Yes.
the split. But the land of Azerbaijan, part of it is remains, or the land of where the Azeris, because the people of Azerbaijan are Azeris, is
Mm-hmm.
still a part of it is still in Iran, and Ayatollah Khamenei what is an Azeri?
Mm. Oh,
Okay, yeah,
oh,
he's Azeri. Yeah.
I didn't know
So
that.
yeah, because you have to recognize that when um you're talking about Iran, you have many ethnic groups. Okay.
Yes.
Now now part of what happened in that region is that with the breakup of the Ottoman Empire and the Sykes-Picot Agreement,
Mm-hmm.
um, the the Kurdish lands were just chopped up. Okay,
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes.
and
Mm.
and the Kurds never got a look in to get a state.
Yes.
And so what happens is that the 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 the, the political maneuver is to offer the Kurds a state, but they're never going to get one, right?
Do you think that?
And
I mean, what makes you
it's a
say
bit
that
like
they're going?
Palestine. They're not going to get the state.
Let me
Okay.
ask. Let me ask you this: why do you think they're going to do it with they? I mean, the West is going to do it again, which is to promise, just like the Armenians were promised the state and never. Well,
Well, the
the
Armenians
Kurds.
had the
Sorry,
Armenians
I
had a
misspoke.
state. Sorry.
I misspoke. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. I mean, that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole other conversation. The Kurds. It was the Kurds. Oh, this might be a hornet's nest because I've had this conversation in Turkey, and it didn't go too well. But the claim is that the Kurds were promised by Ataturk that they would get higher levels and degrees of autonomy and self-governance, including possibly their own state, if they helped in the elimination of the Armenians, which is an underlying narrative about the Armenian genocide or the
Okay.
genocide against the Armenians, which is a very
Okay.
contentious issue in Turkey.
So I okay. So you get what was occurring
Yeah.
at that period, in which you get Greek independence.
Mm-hmm.
and the slaughter of Turks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, I I think that you can't talk about the Armenian genocide and contextualize it without contextualizing the other one.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
Mm.
and and not because you want to justify one by the other, but you cannot understand the tensions at play. Okay, at that period without that. Okay, so I generally have not spoken about that. I have very great. I have great, and I've had great Armenian friends, and we've had fun, and
Mm.
Armenians are fun.
Mm.
Armenians are sharp, and that's what's fun about them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But the reason I bring this
Um.
up is because it was not so
Okay.
much.
No. I know. I'm coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about now, the point I'm going to bring here is that the thing about the Kurds is that everybody promises them their state, and everybody betrays them.
That's it. That's it. That's.
Okay. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have to, at that point, you got to look at why. And when you start to look at the lands that they inhabit,
Mm.
okay, where the
Mm.
oil is,
You can't have
where
it.
it must be transported across,
It
right?
can't possibly be
They're
allowed.
not going to get it. There's
You can't.
no way they're getting it, right? As long as those states remain as they are, there's no way they're getting that, right? You know, by maintaining them there, even as a group that wants their independence, they are also used as buffers, okay, as buffer periods, because often so that like the Turks,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let's take Iran. The Iranian oil, most of the Iranian oil are on the coastal Arab lands.
Mm-hmm.
Those aren't Farsi people. They're Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And because of the finding of the oil and the kind and the way that they basically have been dealt with, those Arabs have been dealt with as colonies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And and the state has been absolutely brutal to them in order to make sure that they don't get any ideas
Yes.
about themselves and that oil and their
Mm-hmm.
desire for independence because they were historically independent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
No, no, please, please follow through.
No, no. So that you have all of these things going on, and um, with respect to what is to that. Okay, so to that region. Okay, that region is not straightforward, and the whole argument that people will have is that, oh, this has been a region where they're always fighting. No, that's actually a lie. Right, the
Mm-hmm.
region is actually quite stable.
Mm-hmm.
It was the re-architecture of the region, which it seems on one level, it seems that it was re-architected to maximize this.
The Balkanization of the West Asia.
Yeah, but also to
Deliberate.
because you're chopping up peoples in ways that that's just a problem. They're going to be problematic. Okay.
Can I can I throw in
Mm-hmm.
some uh information, coherent information for our audience? So the Kurdish people are an ethnic group of approximately 30 to 45 million people, primarily inhabiting a mountainous region spanning Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. That's 4 countries. They're considered one of the world's largest stateless nations. They're a significant minority in their own respective countries, with the largest population, roughly 15 to 20 million, living in Turkey. So there's 15 to 20 million that live in Turkey. That represents approximately 18 to 20% of the Turkish population. In Iran, roughly 8 to 12 million Kurds comprise 10% of the population. In Iraq, 5 to 8 million, where they make up roughly 27% of the population in the Kurdistan region, and roughly 2 to 3.64 million in Syria, often cited as about 10% of the population. In Europe, Germany houses
What
1.2
about
million.
did you mention Iraq?
Iraq was 5 to 8 million Kurds,
Thank you.
27%
Okay.
of the population.
Okay. Sorry, and you're saying in Europe?
And in Europe, we have 1.2 million Kurds in Germany. We
Mm-hmm.
have about 320,000, they say, in France,
Mm-hmm.
120,000 in the Netherlands, and another
Mm-hmm.
120,000 in Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And uh,
How many in the UK?
oh, it doesn't say here, but I will find out right away. Kurds in UK, the number is around, it says around, let me see if I saw that correctly, around 50,000 in 2000, in the year 2000.
Mm-hmm.
So it's in 2022, in the United Kingdom, in 2022, around 93,000.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's what we have. Hold on. Is there anything else that needs to be said? Of course. The idea that Kurds are monolithic is absurd, considering their locations and their cultural and historical experiences of these different of these populations in different states. And the majority of Kurds are Sunni Muslims, but the population includes Shia Muslims, Alevis, and adherents of other faiths. They are they speak Kurdish. Yep.
Kurds
Yes.
are also Christians and Yazidis.
There we go.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
which is Yazidis are peculiar to the Kurds, a group of people. That,
Mm.
yeah, and they believe in an angel called Malik Tus.
Oh yes. Oh
That's
yes.
it. I think I told you about that before. And I think it's important. It's important to understand how these and they're Jewish Kurds.
Oh,
Okay.
that yes. Yeah. You know how I heard about that? A very conservative Israeli geopolitical analyst made a list in a lecture once
Mm-hmm.
of all of the allies that they have in the region and who
Mm-hmm.
will benefit greatly from the establishment as ordained in the Old Testament,
Mm-hmm.
um, of Greater Eretz Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran off a list of peoples in the region that will be first and foremost prime allies of Israel, despite Israel considering itself to be positioned in a sea of enemies
Mm-hmm.
and surrounded by sea
Yes.
of
So
enemies.
so what happens with the Kurds is that because everybody's always selling them out, right? They ally themselves with anybody who's going to be able to supply them with weapons and so on. So sometimes, right, they end up with some of the most unsavory
Mm,
weapon
mm,
suppliers.
mm,
Okay,
mm, mm, mm.
I'm going to leave it at that. Um, but they always get shafted. Okay, but what the point I was making is that the point I was making is that with the Kurds, they have always, they've always been, th- this the word Catholic, which means like a wide church, right? They've always been very Catholic. There's a lot of difference amongst Kurds, and they
Mm.
live and let live.
I just want to confirm to you what
Hmm.
the the underlying energetic and resource dimension of that particular that they have to contend with is. So that region in which they are has an estimated 50 billion barrels of oil and significant natural gas reserves. So these key resources also include metallic minerals, iron, chromium, copper, and zinc in the mountainous areas, alongside industrial rocks like limestone, gypsum, and marble. So if you're sitting on all of that and your intention is to unify to better exercise control over that territory, the people that are supporting you, that are much more powerful than you, as you've been pointing out, will think twice about handing you over all of that resource by allowing you to unify and unitize.
The Americans in particular do not want that. They do not
No.
want a unified Kurdish state,
Mhm.
right? But it's a good strategic um wedge or chip. Okay. Um and the Kurds were very successful against ISIS, and so
Mhm.
they were imprisoning ISIS, right, with their families, etc. And what happened about 2 years ago is that the Americans and the British s- stopped sending them funds to
Mhm.
maintain those prisons, and so they had to let the people out. When we saw that, we knew that the region was heading for something new. We didn't know quite what it was. And then Ahmad al-Shara happened, or Julani. Okay?
Mhm. Mhm.
So um this situation is quite knotted. And so when you're hearing the Americans and the Israelis with the kinds of narratives that they are producing about the region, they are assuming the ignorance and they're assuming the ignorance of their populations to the point of stupidity.
Mhm.
Because at the point that anybody begins to really read around, that the stories they tell are unveiled very quickly. You know, an afternoon of study um, makes you immune to much of the nonsense.
An afternoon of study makes you immune to much of the nonsense. I think this is going to be my new one. Apple a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah. um, no, but I think it's really I think it's really important. Now, as there's some strategic things about this which I don't think I'm going to get into because
Mhm.
we're almost at an hour and a half, right? Or we're going to soon be. So because I think one of the reasons I wrote the article, The Three Clocks,
Mhm.
was to really break down what the strategic constraints on that situation are.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, but my conclusion is that this is clearly an American jihad,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
as Western Empire has imagined jihad to be.
Yes.
Right. And when what you have to recognize is that when you start to study the Crusades and you start to see the way that they imagine jihad to be, they begin to look quite similar.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
And 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 what is striking is that it's most uncomfortable to say this because I'm a Sunni, but the Shias are most resistant to that kind of um, jihadi um, propaganda
Mhm.
because they are structured in such a way that they are just quite naturally quite resistant to that.
Mhm.
Okay, so when you see the Shias forming groups to fight, they tend to do so under their own doctrines, right? Quite unadulterated in that way. I mean, the Wilayatul Faqih is considered by Shia to be a an innovation, right? It's considered it is a change from, because their traditional position is that you must wait for the arrival of the Mahdi,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and the Mahdi comes as one of those who will fight the Antichrist, okay,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and so Imam Khomeini said, no, no, no. What has to happen here is that a, a righteous jurist has to take on that role of leading a Muslim polity.
Yes.
Okay, so because what would happen is that the the s- the s- the state or governance would be very quite actually quite secular.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so that and so they changed it, and they changed it in a republican democratic format. So many of the later Iranian governments
Mm-hmm.
have been liberal, and so the Ayatollah or the Ayatollah as supreme leader doesn't is not in absolute control of the economy, right, and the polity. So I think again, another thing, an afternoon of research will make you immune to a lot of the nonsense. Okay, but what I believe that we're actually seeing, and sorry, we haven't had many questions.
Let me see if I can see.
I can't
I can
see any.
see.
I've been looking, and I've been
Surya
able
is
to
the
see now.
last that I see. Roberto Romano is in here. Salim is in here. Um, Anuraga is
Yeah.
in here. They turned.
There any
Yusuf
questions?
Ahmad is in here. And I am. Let me see. You say I can't see the chat. Good morning, gentlemen, it says. And then
Hmm.
it says it's frozen. I can't see what you're typing. Is it a blood sacrifice for the Christian Zionist view of end times, or the polytheistic blood sacrifice to the idol Baal, or both, different by different parties?
I think I answered that, don't you?
Yes, 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 yes. It says, Surya says, I don't see why the Kurds have to have a state of their own. Other ethnicities are spread all over the world and don't demand an exclusive state of only them. As long as there is justice and peace, this exclusive state is like having another Israeli state.
Well, okay. So you have to understand how the Ottomans collapsed.
Mm,
Okay. Um, what had happened is that Napoleon had used nationalism to break up European empires. Okay,
mm-hmm,
so he broke up European empires by encouraging nationalism and nationalities.
mm,
Okay, and that once that had happened in Europe, that was then turned on, in particular, that area, the Levant and the Middle East. Okay,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and and so they left the Ottoman Empire in pursuit of nationalist goals. Okay, so
yes,
that has remained also part of Arab nationalism, Kurdish nationalism,
mm-hmm,
and other forms of nationalism that people have sometimes recognized that is not going to work anyway, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Including Armenian nationalism. Okay, so you have to understand that that's where it's coming from. So when you're asking these questions, what you have to recognize is that liberation discourse has been shaped around the nation state as the container of liberation. So so you have to, regardless of whether you agree with that, then then that's the format that has animated our discourses.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean that's my answer to your question. Um, yeah. So
I'd
that
like to.
the question of justice and peace is what happened with the nation is you want your justice and peace,
Mm-hmm.
not somebody else's.
You know, I just want to add one thing to what you
Mm-hmm.
said at the beginning is the Treaty of Sèvres from
Mm-hmm.
1923 is the one in which the Western powers said the following. There's a short passage, and I
Mm-hmm.
strongly invite our audience to Google the Treaty of Sèvres and read it. It's extremely interesting. And there's a passage in which it's the following is said: if and when such renunciation um, takes place, no objection will be raised by the principal allied powers
Mm-hmm.
to the voluntary adhesion to such an independent Kurdish state of the Kurds inhabiting that part of Kurdistan which has hitherto been included in the Mosul Vilayet. So there's a passage in which the British are basically saying uh, there is no reason why we would have a problem with an independent Kurdish state located where that Mosul Vilayet used to be.
Yes, but that was because those promises were necessary to to prize them away from the Turks,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
because that was not possible under the Turks. The Turks would say, "No, why would we split? No, 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 no. We can give federal. Maybe we can have some kind of federal, but we can't. We can't split, right?
Yes.
That's what the Turks was. That's what the Ottomans were saying. Um, and what's his name? What's the ethnicity of Ataturk?
Oh, I think I used to know that. Let me see.
I can't remember anymore.
Ataturk ethnicity, Mustafa Ataturk. Founder of modern Turkey, was of ethnic Turkish origin, so it is Turkish,
Okay.
born to a
Mm-hmm.
Muslim, Turkish speaking family in Thessaloniki. Interesting. Now I see why you asked that question. Born to a Turkish speaking family in Thessaloniki, part then of the Ottoman Empire in 1881. While his family hailed from the Aydin region in Anatolia, theories about potential Balkan, Albanian, or Slavic roots exist but lack concrete definitive evidence.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. So this is I know people who wouldn't like any of this to be a part of any conversation.
Mm-hmm.
This is a point I never picked up. I never picked up on this.
Yeah. So I mean, and the point the reason why I'm making um reference to all of this is to is is to give um so what happened is that when this kind of discourse, this nationalist discourse happened,
Mm-hmm.
then the the ethnicity became really important
Mm-hmm.
as an explainer of your current circumstances. So
Mm.
before you might say, look, the Turks are just corrupt, right? But then you start to, the narrative begins about how the Turks are to your ethnicity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the point was that the Turkish imperial form was that the Albanians were just as much um, Ottoman
Mm-hmm.
as the Turks,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? The Greeks were just as much Ottoman as the Hungarians when they were part
Yes.
of it, right? So that's how it worked, right?
Or the Mamelukes.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's how they that's how they absorbed you. So this um this innovation, because it's so normal for us now that we cannot see how much of an innovation nationalism when Napoleon weaponized it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's my
Mm-hmm.
point.
That's excellent. There's a point by Roberto Romano that the Prime Minister Modi's embrace of Israel hours before the sneak attack on Iran
Hmm.
telegraphed. Um, uh, any views on that?
Look, the the Indians have the Indians and the Israelis are allies.
Which Indians
Okay,
now?
India.
Which ethnicities now?
No, no, I'm saying that the Indian state and the Israelis are allies.
Mm.
Okay, and um and Modi's party, the BJP, is increasingly defining India as civilizationally challenged by this group of invaders who have been in um in India since eight something
What was his
or
name?
before,
What was
right?
his
Or
name
before.
again?
Yeah.
But we uh
He's the the nephew of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf.
Timur? Is it
No, no,
Timur?
this before this. This is long before Timur.
Timur.
This is the nephew of Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, who was the first Arab conqueror to
Mm-hmm.
enter India,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
mainly on the coast. Okay,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and very different. They were not when they came. They were their even their legal school of thought was very different. It's Shafi. Their language of scholarship was Arabic,
Mm.
etc. The it was when the other groups who came from the north
Mm-hmm.
were either Hanafi or Shi'i. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
often a mix of the two. So the point the point is that this group of people who have been part of India
Mm-hmm.
for almost 1,000 years are now being defined as outsiders, right? And they are getting and so they what they want to do is to re- nationalism again, to
Mm-hmm.
redefine India as a Hindu state,
Mm.
right? So
Mm.
India, that's going to be problematic because India is, has Buddhist, Jains. Um, there's no, there's, it's very difficult to have an overarching definition of what a Hindu is,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's very broad church.
Mm-hmm.
So, so, this is going to end up being quite problematic. Okay. And,
Mm.
and, and, and Modi is going to end up in exactly the same kind of position or with the same kind of problems that beset the Mughals when they were trying to deal with these matters, right? But even the Mughals were not stupid enough to do that, right?
To excommunicate
Right.
a
Even
person
the
from.
Mughals were not so stupid to do that. Um, the Mughals did not do that, anything like that. So what you're seeing is that this nationalist discourse, which is
Mm-hmm.
a nationalist, actually fascistic discourse, which is part of the Indian far right,
Mm-hmm.
um, is now part, and so that they have been aligning with the Israelis increasingly for a long time. This is not new.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's
along
what's what's
along the vector of hatred for Islam.
yeah, for Muslims.
Mm.
Yeah. Um. And yeah. So yes, yes, Robert Romano. So that's what we're facing there. Um. And a peculiar kind of Hindu nationalism that is going to be particularly troublesome for places that have large Hindu populations if that doctrine spreads. Okay, because they want to be what they're trying to do. They want to be very muscular, right? So they're looking at the Israelis and going, "Oh yeah, no. This is what we need to do. Exactly. This is what we need to do."
And this is extremely problematic from the point of view of a bloodless global civil society. Well, and I see your look. You know where mine is coming from. This kind of statement is that I think when populations trade with each other, when populations interact with each other, build with each other, uh, exchange with each other without bleeding one another, I think beautiful things are de facto built civilizationally. But we have to also recognize the reality of history that powerful, dominant actors will utilize their domination to exterminate, to exclude, to extract from others. And that is just the way history, those are the notes in the song of history.
Yes.
Cooperation and domination.
You know, in the second axiom of psychopolitics,
Mm-hmm.
what is it we talk about is how coherence is predicated upon contradictions, exclusions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I also, yes, those two. There's also libidinal investment, but that's not really relevant to what I want to say here.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really that the who is the other? So in order to create when political stability is threatened,
Mm-hmm.
then you excluding the other helps you to become more coherent. But it also helps you to look strong when you feel weak,
Yes.
right? So if you're a majority, then you just have to exclude the other. No, we have to purify ourselves of the other. The other is a contaminant, okay,
Yes.
and so on. So these are aspects of aggressivity that will manifest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and 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 that other is always a site of contradiction. That's why I went to Ataturk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
okay. So you want to move from an Ottoman state to a Turkish state, right? But you are also quite possibly part ethnic Albanian and others. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's natural. Because we are human. There are going to be these contradictions. So that what I'm saying here is that
The rigidity of
in
purification.
but it is this is what I call when I wrote that book that when I wrote that article called "The Ghost in the Machine."
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that this is part of the package
Yes.
of the nation state.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what happens in Germany with the collapse of the Weimar Republic and the rise of the Nazis is not that strange for nation states, right? But
Mm.
that is there was a point at which if I had said that, it would have been like I was a heretic. But
Mm-hmm.
by now, people are able to I've seen it so many times,
Mm-hmm.
right? That it is becoming coherent. You could
Mm-hmm.
see it,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
That what the Nazis did in order to because the reality is that Germany is not a natural state, and they knew
Mm.
that.
Mm.
So it was what they were trying to do is to arrive at a definition of German that could now be pure, and if you were not if you found that you were not pure German, then you could marry and reshape your genetic inheritance, right?
Mm-hmm.
To
Mm-hmm.
become properly German because the German is Aryan,
Jus
right? And
sanguinis.
yeah, But also, if you look at what's his name, Tolkien's reply to
Mm-hmm.
them when they wrote to him because they wanted to publish his work, right?
Mm. Mm.
Tolkien really, he just dismisses it as absolute tripe, right? It has no intellectual basis. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what you're looking, but this is a feature of what happens with nation states, because with nation states you you're saying, okay, we are a natural nation, and a truly national nation is an ethnic is an ethnic entity. Okay, so like Salim is saying here, the language is used as identity markers when European immigrants came to the US, country of origin Austria, right? Austria was an empire, so Austria included places like Slovenia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you come to the United States, and United States can't understand you like that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not Austrian,
Mm-hmm.
you're Slovenian, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it can name you by your ethnic marker, right? And then what happens is that you proceed to manufacture them from their ethnic marker into a para ethnic identity of whiteness, right? Happened with the Germans
Mm-hmm.
because the American European pool, genetic pool, is primarily German,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and that's because of their import of Germans in order to reshape, to make sure that they were not um, overwhelmed by African blood, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the point I'm making about this is that this is inherent in the nation state. Okay, this is inherent in
Absolutely.
the nation state.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
All right. Listen, it's long,
And
I mean, it's now 11:30, isn't it? 11:37. That's too. I think.
yes,
I think.
but
Yeah.
we've
Hmm.
landed on something. Roberto Mano wrote something that I'd like to applaud because I'm a bit ashamed to admit this. I had
Mm.
no notion of Akhand Barat.
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
had no notion of Akhand Barat. Well, the concept, and that's
Mm-hmm.
extremely important. Of course, I picked up the nationalism, and if you had asked me, I would have said in my book, from my paradigm is
Mm.
violence
Mm-hmm.
prevention at the macro political level. That's where my
Mm-hmm.
expertise is. So in my book, the one of the top three most dangerous, worth preventing escalations to mass category violence uh, possibilities on this planet is the
Mm-hmm.
case of Indian Hindu nationalism confronting, what is it, 80, that's 80% of India. Um, or no, the Hindus are 80% of India, and Muslims are 15% of India.
Mm-hmm.
And the possibility of that fault line between these two populations uh, flaming up and leading to mass category violence is extremely high. And it is something that, if it were to escalate, to uh, blaze up and explode, I think World War One and World War Two will be jokes in comparison in
Okay.
terms of, pardon me,
No, no, no. I said okay.
in comparison in terms of casualties. And that is, of course, something that is extremely worrisome and troublesome. So, with this at the back of my mind, when Robert Romano wrote Akhan Barat, I immediately, on my fact check and little device I have here, and then
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
realized what it is. It's the undivided India, the greater India concept, as an irredentist concept advocating for a unified Indian subcontinent that includes modern day India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Afghanistan, Nepal, Bhutan, and Myanmar. I wasn't aware that such a concept actually had a noma,
Yes, it does. Well, now.
Akhand Barat, and I'm very grateful to Robert Romano for throwing this my way because it
Mm-hmm.
pulls it all together. And I know a little bit about Sri Lankan Mahawansa, and I wonder how Akand Bharat and the Mahawansa concept would gel, which is, the
Yeah.
the Sri Lankan idea of its purity. But that's a whole other story.
But in this region, there's no purity, right? Because of the imperial nature of it and the changing empires. So when the Muslims arrived in India, especially when they were coming down in the south, they defeated the Chola Empire, and the Chola Empire ruled all the way to places like parts of Indonesia. Okay, I think it is because of the Cholas that you see systemization or similarity in the martial arts right across that region, right? Those Indian-based martial arts, rather than the Chinese derivation, because the Chinese martial arts are a derivation of Indian martial arts, right? Sorry, I'm going to upset a lot of Chinese people. My apologies. But
it's impossible to have this conversation
there's
without.
Bodhidharma, right?
Sorry.
There's Bodhidharma, the the what I think is actually a Tamil monk, Buddhist monk, right? Or at least a Malayan or one of those South India ones who takes a tantric yogic knowledge into China and fuses it into martial arts in the Buddhist temple. Yeah, in the Shaolin temple. So all of this. What I'm really saying is that the imagination of purity like this, right? Just saying there's contradictions and exclusions, right? Yeah. And when threatened, what happens is that um, identity is weaponized as defense.
Identities weaponized as defense and must remain pure. And this is the essence
Well,
of the American brand of
no,
jihadism.
it must remain phantasmatically pure.
Thank you. Thank you. And I mean, this is also, since we're talking about India, who killed Gandhi and why? Who was the man who shot Gandhi
Yeah.
and why? And I've just from what I've picked up, one can say that Gandhi had to be killed by one of his own for the sacrilegious act of practicing politics that were too strong a brand of blending Buddhism. Too much Buddhism was being blended into his Hinduism, is what he was accused of by some Hindus. That there was too much Buddhism in his Hinduism. So
Yes, because but that's the nature of Buddhism, is that there is no, Hinduism is a very wide church. Okay, it's very wide. Yeah. Um. So Surya is saying Hinduism is big in Southeast. Yes, the Cholas spread Hinduism right across the area, right? And particular Hindu scholarship, right? You would go to places like Indonesia, some parts of Malaysia, and you would find um Hindu scholarship, Hindu and Buddhist scholarship. Okay. Um. So that yes. So if you look at their scripts, etc., you'll see derivations. Okay. And yes. So your name Surya, yes, Sanskrit for sun. Yeah. Okay. Anurag is saying the India part was really good. I learned a bit about the chaos of the Cholas from you.
the Cholas.
The Cholas, yeah. I knew about yes, the Ahan Bharat concept before. Instead of being under the umbrella of an overarching belief in God, which diminishes ethnic. Well, I don't know if an overarching belief in God reduces ethnic groups. What we have to understand is that the nation state. Okay, so you've been reading things like the Grimm's fairy tales and so on. Okay, those guys were trying to collect folk stories in order to backfill an ethnic history as a basis for the nation.
Mm.
Okay, so what you're looking at is a technology of the idea of nationhood which
Mm-hmm.
comes out, right?
Mm.
And and what often happens is that in states in states that are try to be okay, they want to be religious states,
Mm.
and I could say some things that get me into trouble here, right? But they want to be religious states, but they take on the nation state,
Mm.
okay, and it very quickly becomes colored as a as an ethnic project, often with religion playing the part of ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but people know their ethnicity, but they now have to deny their ethnicity, and so you get all sorts of problems, right? Because you're dealing with a technology of nation building that is artificial and and when the French were part of that, they wanted to break up the empires so they could colonize the little countries. And
Mm.
because they were helping to form them, they started out economically colonized.
Mm.
Okay, that was the,
Mm.
that wa- that was what they were doing. Okay, so all of that is in the software. So when you go to some place like the middle, like I'm using that term.
Mm.
I don't like West Asia, but I
Oh.
hate Middle East. Right? Because when you say West Asia, I don't understand how Europe is not West Asia. I can't see how they're not West Asia, right? Anyway, whatever. Anyway, um, the yeah. So no, but the point is not that the fairy tales are found. This is the point that the national that this idea of identity is so ingrained in us that we cannot imagine before it, right? The collection of fairy tales
Mm.
was in the way that they did it was
Mm.
in order to create
Mm.
the idea of a nation with what was that word, the rise of the uh, this was atavism,
Mm.
right? It was an attempt to create what was an atavistic state, right?
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
state
Mm-hmm.
that had an ancient lineage
Mm-hmm.
and at which there was no longer difference amongst the people because we are unified in this, right? It was
Have
about the
forever been.
creation of this and forever have been, right? It was this attempt to create that, which was never really part of the discourse of a people
Mm-hmm.
in that particular way, okay? So
Mm-hmm.
that a people could have been part of like the Austrian Empire or the Ottomans, and their difference is okay. The difference was never really a problem. They would
Mm-hmm.
live in their different community, but they could be Ottomans, right? Because their Ottomanness had nothing to do with their ethnicity.
Yes.
Okay, but what happened is that your ethnicity became fundamental to your political identity. Okay, and because each ethnicity must have their own nation to be free.
Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
because
Mm.
and I'm blaming that on the French.
Yes. Hmm.
But my genealogy of this one is weak, so I might get corrected. But I'm very thankful for any scholars who would do that. Yeah. So it's not that it's not the fairy tales themselves. It is the construction. Yeah, the Ottoman is Uthmaniyya. Yes, is the construction of modern identities and the recasting of the world as nations in order that, oh God, because this was the rewiring of mankind for nations that have central banks and national debts in the way that we have right now.
Hmm.
It was the rewiring of mankind for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. That was a lot.
That
I
was
think
a
I'm
lot.
done.
That was a lot. But would you allow me to just ask again? The American Jihad. The American Jihad. We are in March 2026. The
Hmm.
things that are unfolding in this moment in history. Could you give us again an overview? If you were flying over the attributes of the moment that tell you that we are witnessing now the American Jihad, what would the facets and attributes of the American Jihad be that are unfolding for you to see it so clearly in this moment in time?
The American Jihad is based upon these principles. One, that you must control the most strategic commodity on the face of the earth at present, which is oil. You must control not only its flow, because they had gone to the point where they could control the flow and that the main markets were where they are. And because what is happening now is that they've lost control, they're losing control over the flow.
Hmm.
And not only that, but they will lose, because China is as dominant as it is in trade, they will lose control over the markets. New York will no longer be as important. London will no longer be as important. Okay.
And the reason why the oil is so important is because it is attached and connected to the US dollar as trade currency, global trade
No,
currency.
the okay, you got to go back.
Hmm.
Oil is important because uh, it was made the okay, the, the the first fuel of the industrial age was coal.
I thought it was whale. Yes, yes, of the industrial age. Yes.
It was
Mm.
coal.
Mm.
Okay. And then after that, the next fuel of the industrial age became petroleum. And the carve up of the Arabian Peninsula and Iran was because of petroleum. It
Yes.
what they do they, what they realized it was the richest petroleum area of the earth, and so it had to be controlled in order, because the British Navy needed oil. It was now being rebuilt around oil, so they were securing oil. Sorry, um, he's disappeared. So they were securing oil, and so the importance, is everybody here or what? Oh no, I'm off. It's dead. Is everybody here? It looks like I don't have access to anybody. Oh, you're here.
What happened?
I don't know what happened. I thought I lost the video actually. Yeah. Okay. So what happens is that they move to oil, and when they realize that a lot of the oil was in Iran, okay, they cut a deal with the Iranians. Um, and can't remember the name of the ruler of the ruler of Iran at that point, but he was smoking a lot of opium at the point. Are you there?
I'm here and I'm listening very attentively.
Are people here? I mean, because I'm not sure what's
We're
going on.
Anuraga's here. We have I think we have a Gaia is here. We have Sada Dansabo. Hey, hello Dansabo.
Okay.
How are you doing? Long time.
Yeah, I'm
Hafsat is
sorry.
here.
I can't really see any of that, but I will just talk,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope that I can save it at the end.
So we have the facets. We have the facets going on. The facets of the attributes of the American Jihad, and you started by pointing out their attachment to oil as a governing resource.
Yes, because what has happened is that the United States also had a lot of oil. And so when the United States in the First World War began to supply all of that weaponry,
Mm-hmm.
okay, then by the Second World War, they had built the greatest um, military machine the world has seen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or during the Second World War, they did that. And so that was dependent upon oil. But it was also, but it was, and so they deliberately chose
Mm.
not to go for nuclear, especially thorium-based nuclear energy, because they 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 needed to make sure that they remain central to the oil economy,
Mm-hmm.
and that paid off when they had to decouple from gold, and then they retied the economy to oil,
Yes.
right? And you have to remember that right now, United States has, I think, the largest natural gas reserves in the world. Okay,
Mm.
so they don't want. So what they want to do is to maintain control of that resource.
Mm.
Okay, not only its flow, but to control it at origin. They must be the ones pumping it out.
Mm.
Okay, because then they can control. Because right now, if they sanction, people can get around it. Okay, but the ultimate sanctionable commodity is oil.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's what you're seeing. So they are trying to secure their empire by binding down on that.
Yes.
Okay. Um, and it so happens that the Middle East, or sorry, or West Asia, whatever, sits on the oil is under there. Okay, and so it is very useful to define those people, right, as terrorists.
I think
Uh,
I think it's
right?
not I think it's not unfair to call the entire region petrolia.
I think that would be all right. That in terms of the way that European empire has dealt with that, we should just call it petrol. Yeah, yeah. I have a problem because I don't know how I'm going to be able to save this video.
You know what?
I don't even I can't.
Try. Let me let me try and start recording from now on. Oh, what happens? Hello, hello? Oh no, don't do this. Don't do this. Okay, that
Okay,
doesn't
I'm
work.
okay now. There's nobody there now, so I don't know. I've got zero people in it. I don't know if you can see people on your end. So I think we should close it. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's sad because I'm ah well, let's but at least for our ears, you were going to give us the facets as you see them of American jihadism.
Okay, so the one is the securing of oil.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
the they have to if they're going to secure because of how they have gone about um the sanctioning and especially the locking people out of SWIFT, etc. Now people will not choose Swift.
Yes.
So they must be forced to use it. That's the only way it's going to survive. Okay. And so, um, since it is only going to survive by threat, right, that now what was run by market forces has to be now run by carceral forces. Okay. So one of the aspects that you're seeing is the emergence in the way that the U.S. empire is now transitioning to being regional. You can lock you in, and if you do not stand by the rules of that imperial enclosure, then you get gazaed, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's absolutely essential to control Iran in that. Right, Iran is not optional, and this is why I said that as the French and the Germans, also the French and the British and possibly the Germans join that fight, then it increasingly slides towards being the seen as a civilizational confrontation. Ultimately, it's about China, right? The Chinese at present believe that they will be able to trade, even if there was not a a an Iran covered by this government, they'll be able to trade. I don't think that they are, because a lot of their geostrategists don't think that it's that important. But I think that what is happening is that they are beginning to realize what they're facing, right? If they didn't realize that already, because a lot of what's written, um, a lot of what is written that I've seen thinks that even if Iran doesn't survive, then they will be okay. Okay. Um, I think that kind of belief is becoming more and more untenable for them as they look at what is rising. So I think that one of the things I kept saying over the past 3 years has been that the Atlanticist bloc, i.e., the United States and the Europeans, who are so their power is based around the Atlantic. Their qualities are based around the Atlantic, and they have developed together with a common grammar because of that. That they cannot imagine a world in which they do not have asymmetrical control over those resources.
Yes.
And so so Marco Rubio's speech at the Munich conference, the Munich Security Conference, basically mirrors that.
Yes.
Okay, that if they don't have asymmetrical access to your resources, that is a moral fault on your side, because you are morally obligated to give them access at the best terms, at the terms that suit them the most. And so they must return to basically colonial empire.
Yes.
Okay. So what you're seeing is that forming its fault lines. It looks like that is going to form its fault lines. That is likely to form its fault lines, and it seems to be doing so at present against Iran and in West Asia.
And that
Okay, there's
consolidation.
there's some other things, but I think those are the most important.
Maybe the third that you pointed out today is to pay attention to the discourse of Christian Zionism that is kind of being used to grease the presence and justify the presence out there for the United States and America. And apparently that is not going down too well with some Christians inside the troops and the atheists inside the troops and the Muslims inside the troops. I think not everyone inside the troops has bought into this discourse of Gog and Magog
Well,
and Armageddon.
well,
That
I'm sorry, but um, they have been listening to this discourse in Congress for the last 2 years.
that is true.
Okay,
That is true.
so I think we have to be very honest about what is going on, how it is hooked on. So, oh yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm fasting. It's a long.
Thank you
It's
so
a long
much.
session.
Thank
I'm
you
going to
so
rest.
much
So,
for this conversation today. We strongly invite you to rejoin us next week on Wednesday when it's time for Dystopia Unmasked with Alexander Carberry and myself. I get to quiz Alex,
yeah,
always with great pleasure and new insights. I've learned a lot today. And I want to invite you to revisit, please, Dystopia Unmasked's posts, where you will find the three clocks: the economic clock, the military clock, and the political clock, all running at different times. And the time is running out in different ways on the three clocks. Alex
yeah.
has an exquisite paper out this week that I want you to read and have a look at how to technically really get the situation in view that we're
Hmm.
witnessing right now. Iraq, Syria, you talk about Lebanon, you talk about the Red Sea. Um, you speak of it being a ladder, an escalation, and not a cliff. If you haven't read the article for this week, please absolutely go to it, have a look at it, and it will equip you to having a very systematic approach to having conversations about what the US is currently doing in that region to the people of that region. Thank you so, so much for joining us every Wednesday over and over and over. For those of you that do, and invite as many people as you can. The more,
Hmm.
the merrier. Thank you
Yeah.
indeed.
Okay. And thank you so much. Sorry, how many people can you see on the
It
live
says
at present?
it says 14 at this moment,
Okay. Okay. Mine says
and
0.
ah, so I have it
Or
as 14, but if you have
okay.
0
All
and
right.
I have 14, clearly we have no idea what the truth is.
Yeah. And the reason why I was asking is because I'm going to end it and I will find out if it's saved. All right,
Thank you
guys,
indeed.
it's been a pleasure. You take care.
Bye for
And
now.
yeah, and salam to those, yeah, to salams and goodbye and love and peace and all that. Yeah, so good.